Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. I'm Ariana Joy, I'm your host, and I'm a professional human design reader and teacher. And I am so excited you're here. Today, the reason I'm so excited you're here is we are doing part 2 of something that was supposed to be one episode, but it just got too long, so I broke it up into 2. And it's called Loving Your Child's Design. In this mini-series, we're talking all about how to support your child according to the way they're designed and the way that they are built. Because if there's one thing we know in human design, not everyone is built the same way. And I said this in episode 1 or part 1, but childhood is where we get most of our natural tendencies and the way our soul speaks to us and the way our body speaks to us conditioned out of us, because the way that we do things as kids might seem incorrect to our parents or to our guardians or to the people around us who are trying to help us thrive and survive in the world. So guardians, adults, even peers will often say, don't do that, or do it differently, or try doing it this way. Or I just don't understand why you're doing it this way. Why can't you just be different? There must be some kind of issue here with you because you're not doing it the way everyone else is doing it. When in reality, the kid was born to be that way. And in my opinion, the earlier we can raise children this way, even if you don't use human design, but understanding that the way they approach things might be the way that they are truly meant to, we can create such a supportive environment where they can become their best, highest, most fulfilled, happiest, successful selves and learn how to trust themselves from an early age too. So in episode 1, we talked all about energy type and how children will show up oftentimes according to their energy type, common challenges, gifts, ways to work with them, things to know about them. And that's a lot about how children operate energetically overall. And that's important to know because when we can help our children operate the way they are meant to energetically and understand the natural energy levels they have. So for example, a non-sacral child, a projector, a manifestor, a reflector, not going to have the same energy levels as a generator or a manifesting generator. And there are other parts to that too. But knowing that, that's how we're going to prepare these kids to work in the way that they're meant to work and approach tasks in the way they're meant to. And also how we're going to help them manifest the things they want really quickly without feeling like life has to be such a struggle or everything has to feel so heavy and grindy and like they can't do things in a way that feels good to them. So if you haven't listened to part 1, definitely check that out. You don't have to check it out first if you don't want to, but there's a ton of good stuff in there. And energy type is so important for anyone. If you didn't know anything about yourself or another person besides their energy type and their authority, I didn't cover authority. But just even someone's energy type is going to tell you so much about them and help you understand how they work and help them and love them. So definitely check that episode out. But today we are talking about profile lines in a child's chart. And profile is a lot more about how we learn and how we show up personality-wise. Our profile is called the costume of our design, not because it hides who we really are, but because it's how we seem on the outside as we're doing things, or even how we seem to ourselves as we're doing things. In fact, profile is usually what people relate to the most or feel really validated by the most in their chart. Unless you're a projector. Projectors are always like, oh my God, I feel so seen by my energy type. But I'd say in general, when someone's like, oh my gosh, that's me, they're talking about their profile. When it comes to kids and profile, though, I would say that, it's cool to know they show up with their personality because that's kind of how they're built to. But I think more importantly than that, it tells us a lot about how they're built to learn, because different kids, just like adults, learn in different ways. And it's pretty obvious in children from a young age how their profile lines will affect how they're learning and how they need to learn. So there are 6 profile lines, and I'm going to go over each one, but just to let you know, this doesn't cover everything to know about each profile line. I'm just picking out some salient important points that are particularly helpful to know about kids. So shocker, we're going to start with the 1 line. Children with 1 lines in their profile. By the way, I should have said this before, but your profile is going to have 2 numbers in it. I actually have an episode all about the profile lines and how to understand your profile. It's called HD 101, The Profiles and the 6 Profile Lines. It's an episode and also an article on the site. But Everyone's going to have two numbers in their profile. The first one is conscious. The second one's unconscious. So conscious is the one that you identify with more. Unconscious is the one that other people will identify you as more often. They will recognize you as that. So for example, I'm a 5'1", so I see myself more as the 5 line. Other people see the 1 line in me a lot. It's not that, we're not aware of our unconscious line, but it's definitely not what we would first identify with. And I think over time we become more aware of it because other people make it obvious that they see us that way. But anyway, so with the 1 line, any child with a 1 line in their chart, so they're either a 1-3, a 1-4, a 4-1, or a 5-1. These children love to go down rabbit holes and learn things and be encyclopedias. This is their shit. This is their jam. They're investigators usually from a very young age. And since this is really their gift, it's important to promote this in them. Even if they're learning a bunch of different things, or you don't really understand why they're so obsessed with learning something, or they just can't let it go. They need to learn more. Or they don't, even become an expert on it. They're just interested in it. Promote them learning about whatever it is they're so fascinated by right now. And when you introduce something new to them, something really important to know about 1 lines in children or adults, you can't expect them to just jump in or go, okay, got it. They are very stability focused. A lot of 1 line children will be very worried about, do I know enough? Am I stable? It might not, the thing that they say as kids might not be, I don't know enough, but that's often a fear for them, is that they don't have a stable foundation to stand on. 4 line children are the same way. And if you expect them to just pick something up and go and run with it, that's going to stress them out a lot. A lot of parents don't understand that about a 1 line child. Kind of like, why are they so anxious? Or why are they so, determined to take their time with this thing? Pick up your beans and go, man. But that's not going to be something that a 1 line child is built for. They're not going to like it. I can tell you from personal experience. I have a 4-6 manifesting generator father who does not really understand the concept of, I need more time to prepare. For him, it's, why not now? For me, it's, why not now? We also have different parts of our chart that would explain that, but I'm getting off track. But basically, with a 1 line child, they're going to understand it and they're going to be ready to move forward at some point. And there is a point where you kind of have to tell them okay, we're ready to move forward now. You know enough, I promise. But don't push them to go as fast as other kids necessarily, especially when it comes to learning. And don't push them to go faster than they're ready for, basically, because the 1 line needs to feel like it really knows what it's dealing with before moving forward, or else the world is going to feel very scary and unstable, more unstable than it actually is to a 1 line child. The 2 line, on the other hand, doesn't really learn that way. It doesn't need time to dig in and study. So if you have a 2 line child, don't be surprised if they just pick things up. Naturally, most 2 lines really don't like the process of studying or book learning. It doesn't mean not all of them do, but the thing is that the 2 line learns through natural talent. It's just oh, I got the gist of it. I'm going to go with that. So what's more important is that these kids do need time, but they specifically need time on their own to just do their thing, because that's how their talents get developed. So give it to them and don't take it personally. It's not that they don't love you or they don't want to be around you. This is just how their gifts develop, and they're naturally drawn to that. And 2 line kids really just don't need you to get involved because that really interferes with their process. So to you, what's interesting is that, on the outside, and to you as a parent or a guardian or an adult, God, that's just the triad. I'll just call you a gridult, a pugridult. But to you on the outside, it might look like they're just goofing around. They're just kind of playing around or putzing around in their room. What are you doing in there? Just spend hours on your Legos. But allowing a 2 line child to play around is what gives them this space to turn what they love doing or what they're drawn to doing into an incredible talent or gift or skill. Also, one thing to know is that you are going to need to call this child out to share their skill or connect with others. They need to be drawn out of being a hermit. Otherwise, they'll just be happy tinkering away. So especially when it comes to, what they've learned or a talent they've developed, they will often need someone else to identify that for them. They just don't see it as much. Another thing to know is that because the 2 line is so, it's very organic in the way it grows. It can't be pushed. Because of that, you might notice that it becomes more obvious, definitely to your child, but even to you, what they're good at a little bit later on in life. It might be obvious like very soon that, oh my gosh, my 6'2" child is just so good at writing or so good at singing, or just they understand archaeology so easily. I don't get why they're so into that. Or it could be a little bit later on that happens, but don't feel the need to push them too much, because although you will probably need to help them recognize their gifts and see it and be like, maybe we share that. Don't push them to find it, because they will find it. But the best way to describe the 2 line is that, especially for kids, it's like this little seed that's kept in a drawer, and it's all warm. It's getting ready. It's there. It's ready to one day blossom, but it needs to do that on its own time. And it's going to do that organically. Now, 3 lines, honestly, I feel like the reason I even made this a 2-parter and included the profile lines is for 3 line and 6 line kids, because it is so important to raise both of these lines. I'm specifically talking about the 3 line right now, but all 6 lines experience life as a 3 line for the first 30 years. So your child who has a 6 line in their chart, pay attention to this section too, because it's going to matter for them. It is so important to raise a 3 line child with the idea and the comfort of knowing that there is no such thing as failure, only learning. Because whether they like it or not, a child with a 3 line will learn through trial and error. They cannot learn through you telling them don't do that or do this. They will be very drawn to figuring it out themselves, and they have to, because that's their process. If a 3 line child is raised in a family where taking risks and chances is not promoted, and things not turning out the way you thought they would is treated as a bad thing, like a failure, this kid is going to have a much harder time embracing who they are and how they approach life later on. As someone who has a lot of 3 line energy in my chart, it's not in my profile, but it is in other parts of my chart, I can tell you that just having 3 line energy in your chart already can feel kind of tough, because there's conditioning from the outside world beyond the family, in society, in the world, that failure is not okay. We don't talk about failure. It's not useful. Even though, everyone's like, it's okay, failure, it's all about whether or not you get back up, not if you fall down. It's not something that's really promoted that strongly, right? Like it's the kind of thing that we hear a lot, and we're like, yeah, of course, everyone fails, everyone fucks up, but not me. And I'm not going to talk about it ever if I do. And the beautiful thing about the 3 line is they're naturally not afraid of failure. But if they're conditioned by those around them to believe they should be, they're just going to think they're a mess. Because I'll admit, the process of the 3 line often looks messy. It doesn't look super linear. Or it looks, a lot of 3 lines can be very afraid people will think they're stupid. And they're not. This is just the way that they approach things. This is the way they learn. They quite literally learn by bumping into life, or life bumping into them. Remove the literally that I just said, because I did that annoying thing where it's not literally, it's absolutely figuratively. It's besides the point. But 3 lines, again, they have to learn it for themselves. So you telling them what to do or not to do isn't going to make that much of a difference. And it can be a little frustrating for some parents of 3 line children, because they can seem really stubborn. Like, no, but I have to do it this way. I want to do it my way. Even if you're like, that is just the stupidest way to do this. Maybe it is, but you need to let them figure that out. And if you want to say, I told you so, that's fine. But you got to give them the space to do it, and not making them feel like they're on this tightrope of, oh, can't fuck up. Dad's going to be so pissed at me, or mom's going to be so mad, or so disappointed in me. Because that's just, they need room. They need room to mess up. Or what looks like messing up to other people might be this way of figuring out this incredible new way of doing things. That's actually, I'll give you a little tidbit. That's why 3 lines are built this way, because they are sort of the guinea pigs of humanity, or the guinea pigs of human design. Their soul came down and agreed to, yeah, I'm going to just bump into new things and figure out how to change the physical world. And whether I share that with other people or I just model it, that's going to be an important part of me being there. That's how I'm going to help humanity. Now, the 4 line is really interesting to me. So the quality of any child's friends or friendships or friend group are going to really influence them, no matter what their profile, for the most part. But it's especially true for 4 line children. They are incredibly friendship and relationship oriented, and their friends matter to them a lot because the 4 line does this thing where, because it is so tuned into relationships, it's so good at making deep connection. It can take relationships very personally. So to them, it's kind of like, what's going on in my life with my relationships that reflects something about me. At least as children, they can take on that lesson, that like idea a little bit. Obviously, it's not true. You are who you are, no matter what someone thinks of you. But if you, as an adult or a caretaker, never really felt that way as a kid, or you just haven't felt that way in a really long time, you're like, people are people. People think what they think, right? I'm not for everyone. Everyone's not for me. It might be hard to see why this matters so much to your kid who has a 4 line, but it really does. And the 4 line is rather sensitive and vulnerable, even if, you have like a 4-1 child, or especially a 4-6 child on the outside. It often doesn't look to other people like they are that sensitive, because the 6 line can look so mature to others. So it can be an easy thing to miss, but it's there for most of them. And that means that if you have a 4 line kid, just take into account that the things that happen to them with their friends will probably be more serious for them. Like relationships matter a lot, and they can get their hearts broken sometimes, especially when someone doesn't want to be their friend. Even if you're like, that little kid was such a shit. Of course they don't want to be your friend because they're shitty. Only good people would want to be your friend. But as a kid, it can be hard to see that. So as a parent, really helping them to keep their heart open and seeing that love of connection is a really beautiful thing. Don't lose that. But also reminding them or telling them, it's not you. I know you would be an amazing friend to that person, but no one is for everyone. And that's what happens for me too. I'm not for everyone. That person isn't for everyone. That's okay. I know you probably could be friends with anyone you want, but it doesn't say anything about you if you're not. And you don't need to be. And I'm telling you, it tells you so much more about the other person than it does about you. So really just doing what you can to help them not close down their heart. Because like I said, the 4 line can be very vulnerable, but it's this incredible gift where when it's developed, especially in adulthood, so many opportunities come through that, career advancements, anything that helps a 4 line grow will come through their connections and their deeper connections, especially. So if they shut that off, that's a really sad thing, because that's going to be their superpower. It probably already is their superpower. And where the 4 line really loves to like make these very deep, meaningful relationships and friendships and connections, the 5 line is the great universalizer. So 5 lines of all ages tend to be good at relating to a lot of different people, but 5 line children are the ones who, they seem just strangely good at connecting with strangers. It doesn't mean that all of them are outgoing, but for the most, it's like pretty easy for us. When I was a kid, I just can't believe my mom let me do this. It's so funny. Well, I wasn't exactly controllable. I don't understand. I don't know how my parents even thought I was ever going to assimilate into normal society. Honestly, I am just such a strange person. And it was particularly obvious when I was a kid. But when I was a little kid, and I was out with my mom and I saw like kids somewhere or something, I'd be like, can I go say hi to them? Can I go meet them? She'd be like, fucking, we'd be in like the shoe department at Macy's. She's like, yeah, fucking fine. I remember one time we were at a burger restaurant and I just like went over and stood near someone's table. It was like this mom with her kids and she's like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to say hi. I would just like to meet your kids. So that's normal for a five line child. Gosh, I don't know if that's normal for any child, but I wouldn't be surprised if you had a kid who does that kind of thing if they have a 5 line in their chart. 4 line kids can do that too, especially if they're 4/6s. They've just never known a stranger. They love meeting people. They love connecting. But with the 5 line, it can be a little bit more surface level. Also, these kids really like attention and like to be seen. So some 5 lines are a little more aware of this need than others, but all of them definitely do at least attract attention. And another thing that they attract a lot to themselves, which oftentimes other people don't realize they're doing to a 5 line, especially 5 line children, is expectations. So be aware of the expectations you're putting on this child. People have a tendency to expect a lot of 5 line children because they seem very competent, and they also have a projected field around them where people see whatever they want to see. I've said this many times before. Every person projects onto other people. That's just how humans work. But with 5 lines, it's particularly strong. Also in the projected field, just in general, people will see whatever they're projecting onto the 5 line strongly. So that means that, usually it's a positive thing. Usually people will look at the 5 line and be like, oh my God, you're here to help me. You're here to save me. But they can, Five lines are sometimes just naturally controversial because if someone's seeing what they need to see in you or in this person, or just seeing whatever it is that they're projecting in the moment, it could be a bad thing because the five line is projected and like reflected. So it's going to show people stuff that's in them. So when that comes to kids, sometimes five line kids can accidentally get really bad reputations off of one bad day or off of just a teacher not liking them. Or a teacher not liking themselves and seeing that part of themselves in your kid. So just knowing that and being a little bit aware of that. But when it comes to expectations, coming back to expectations, depending on where in their profile their five line is, they will likely also feel this pressure and be aware of it. So, I mean, all of them will, but if it's in their conscious line, they're probably going to be a lot more aware of it. If it's in their unconscious line, they'll probably know it's there, but not really understand as much what's going on. So five line kids could feel very misunderstood. So what's important for you to do as a parent is really promote them being their authentic self, and importantly to have boundaries around what they will and will not do. So the reason for this is five lines don't like disappointing anyone. That's like a knife to the heart for them. And as they get older, it's really common for five lines to lean into the projections other people have put on them, especially the really good ones, because they like the feeling of being loved, appreciated, admired, put on a pedestal, just seen. So that means that these five line people and kids can take on these masks that aren't really them. And that can lead to a lot of heartbreak for them and for others when they realize that that's not the real them, because then other people feel disappointed or let down. So basically, what you can do to help five line children with that, to avoid becoming people pleasers or avoid losing their authenticity or feeling who they are and being confident in that, is not pushing them into doing something because, oh, I know you don't like this, but you're so good at this. Don't do that. They will use their strategy and authority to find what they are good at and what they are meant to do. They don't need people convincing them they should be doing something that in their heart they know that they're not good at, or they shouldn't be doing or putting their energy into. Sorry, I'm spending a lot of time on the five line. I'm very passionate about the five line. But they don't need that because that's going to pull them away from their intuition. They're like, oh, well, yeah, people really want this from me, and I really like it when people like me. I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't like when other people like them? But for the five line, because of, the projected field and their need to protect their own reputation, they're going to do what they can to make themselves feel like they're coming off well to other people. So our job with five line children is to really promote authenticity and promote boundaries as being a good thing. Finally, we have our six line kids. My six line children, these kids are very interesting. Many of them are like mini adults. And that's not to say that they're fully mature, but they are wise in this weird way. They are just like these tiny little sages, these tiny little Buddhas. Not necessarily that they act like Buddha, but they might speak like Buddha a little bit or think like Buddha a little bit. And like normal sized adults, they tend to feel the pressure of responsibility very naturally. That pressure finds them. I see that six children and six lines in general feel this weight to be something in their life, to make something of themselves, to make sure that they're fulfilling the highest version of themselves. And part of that comes from the fact that they are meant to be something. They're meant to be a role model for others someday. But the challenge with the six line, especially in children, is that it's experienced, like I said, as a three line for the first 30 years of life. And the three line is all about getting down in there, getting messy, experimenting, getting your hands dirty. The six line's like, no. I'm going to be up on the roof. I'm going to be checking things out from up there. I don't want to be down in this fray. I got to make sure I'm fulfilling my duty of being a responsible F. But they are going to go through a lot of messiness at first. And with six line children, it can be funny because it's like on the outside, they look so wise, and then they'll make this weird three line decision. And as a parent, you might be like, what? That was dumb. Why'd you do that? Because I know you to be the wise little sage that I've had in my life for so long. And this can be kind of tough for these kids internally. If the 5 line experience has a lot of expectations from the outside, I'd say the 6 line has a lot of expectations for itself from the inside. So this, first era, the 3 line, which sometimes seems like almost the opposite of the 6 line, it can be tough, especially if these kids are entering into situations and relationships or, whatever experiences based on decisions they're making with their mind. It's really important for us to promote in 6 line children that they tune into their intuition and what feels right to them rather than doing what everyone else is doing, because that's what the 6 line is supposed to be a role model for everyone else. They're supposed to be living examples to the rest of us on how to follow your inner authority and how perfected and how amazing life can be. I mean, obviously life is never perfect, but the 6 line is here to show us that it can be amazing and we can follow what feels good, our intuition and our inner authority. So they're here to show us how to do that. So when it comes to a 6 line child, things will feel a lot tougher if they're not following their intuition, if they're not following their authority and how they operate and respecting that in themselves. They need to be able to see themselves as the role model one day. So as soon as we can start helping them embrace their own inner wisdom, promote that in them, support that, and not lead them to doubt themselves so much, because 6 line children, a lot of them will kind of doubt themselves. So the best thing to do for them is show them that, 1, it's okay to experiment and learn that way, because that's how it's going to be for them until they're 30. And 2, support them following their intuition. I would say their gut, but I mean, that's for people with sacral authority specifically, but trust what feels right to them and go forward with that. And if it doesn't work out exactly the way they were expecting, tell them, great, you just learned something new. That's going to be wisdom later down the line. Now you know that. Isn't that amazing? Because these children one day are going to be an example for other people, whether they're trying to be or not. Many of them will never, consciously actually be doing that. They'll just be living their lives. Some of them will. But what's important to know is that either way, this is a role that they're going to fill. They're going to be an example. So they need to be able to do it themselves. So that's really it for today. If you want to dive even deeper into your energy type or profile, or someone else's energy type or profile too, you can get all of that in energy type and authority deep dives and profile deep dives. You can get one, you can get a couple or a few, you can get all of them in a bundle if you want. So you can get all the energy types with authorities, or all of the profile types together, all 12 profiles in a bundle, and you'll get a special little discount as a thank you for that. And these are basically really quick, really easy to access and understand video and audio courses with guides and PDF form if you like to learn through reading too, where you can learn all about these parts of your chart. They're very in-depth. That's why they're called deep dives. And I wanted to have these as a way for anyone who, can't get a reading right now, but really wants to learn about their design right now. It's really quick and really easy. And there's another really awesome thing that's going to be available, or it already is available. I don't know, because I record these podcast episodes ahead of time. So it likely will be available by the time this goes up. We're also going to have something I'm so excited about, and something a lot of people have asked me for help with, which is a guide to all 64 gates and 36 channels of the human design chart. So you can decode, even if you're brand new to human design, you can look at your human design chart or someone else's, and you can use this little really quick reference guide to understand what those mean for you. And the gates and channels are your gifts, qualities, abilities, tendencies. It gets a little bit more granular in your chart, and it's one of the most fun things to learn about, but most of the descriptions online are a little bit hard to decipher, to very difficult to decipher, to WTF did I just read? And so I'm incredibly stoked to release this. If it's already out, I'm incredibly excited that it's out. And it also comes with a little lesson beforehand. So if you want to understand how the gates and channels work, and you're like, WTF again, is this? I'm going to walk you through it with some little mini video courses too. So that's it for today. You rock, and I will see you next time.